Alright guys, I'm back with another horror movie review, and this is The Hills Have Eyes Part 2 from 1985, the movie that was supposedly so bad Wes Craven disowned it. And after watching this movie, I don't really see why. I mean, it's not a bad movie. It was okay. The first one's definitely better, but I didn't think it was that bad of a movie. It's got its fair share of cheesy scenes and bad acting, but so did the first movie. So I don't really understand why he felt this movie was so bad he just had to disown it. But it starts off with the following is based on fact, just like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And it gives us a little recap of what happened in the first movie. We see Bobby from the first movie talking to a psychiatrist, and he's telling him about what happened in the desert. And we get a flashback to Bobby and Brenda fighting Jupiter. And the psychiatrist tells Bobby that Jupiter's dead. He defeated the cannibals. It's all over. But Bobby's not sure about this, and he's got to go back through the desert. He has this motorcycle race team, and they have to make it to this big race because he's invented this super formula he wants to try and sell to a big gas company. So he's got to go back through the desert. He's just really nervous about this after everything he's been through, but the psychiatrist tells him it's going to be fine. And then we see one of his racers, Roy, who goes to sneak into his girlfriend Cass's house wearing a mask. He's going to try and scare her because she's blind. Nice guy. And Roy and Cass meet up with some of the other racers. And this girl, Rachel, tells Roy that Bobby's not feeling so good. And we see Bobby, he's freaking out. We get another flashback, and Rachel tells Bobby she will go in his place. And that was it for Bobby. So it was kind of just some cameo appearances here. It was cool they brought him back for this movie. But yeah, that's really it for Bobby. And they load up the bus. They have all the motorcycles there and all the racers. And they're getting ready to go to the desert. And they stop to pick up Beast, the dog from the first movie. Well, not the same dog, because that dog would be old as crap by now. But yeah, Beast looks exactly the same, even though he was a full-grown dog in 1977. Here it is, 1985. Looks the same. Full of energy, can still kick ass, all of that, all these years later. And they're joking about what happened in the desert with Jupiter, and Rachel has a dream, so another flashback of Doug and Ruby killing Mars, and we see that Rachel is Ruby from the first movie. And they really build this up like it has all these survivors from the first movie, but it really doesn't. It's really just Ruby. I mean, Bobby had those cameo appearances, but that was it. It's really just Ruby. And they realize it's daylight savings time, and they have no chance to make it to the race unless they take a shortcut. So they decide to take this shortcut. Ruby allows this, and they have no idea where they're going. The bus starts to leak gas. They can't use the super formula, though, because it's like jet fuel or something. It'll blow the bus up. So they're running out of gas. They can't find a gas station, and they find this little mining area. So someone's watching them, and we see it's Pluto. And they start exploring the area, looking for gas and joking around. Beast starts freaking out at something. They think it's just a raccoon, though. I didn't know raccoons lived in the desert. So, but Rachel knows something is wrong. She gets attacked by Pluto, and she kicks his ass. He throws a hammer and hits her in the head, knocks her out, but she really does kick his ass for the most part. He's wearing this weird white rat tail looking thing on his neck too, which was funny. But he does end up knocking her out and runs off, and the others run up to help her, and she says her dead brothers come back, and he's after revenge, and they think she's crazy. She just hit her head too hard. Back on the bus, we see Beast, who has a flashback. The dog has a flashback now. And Rachel tells the others that she's the crazy wild girl they were joking about on the bus. They still think maybe she's hallucinating or something. But eventually they do believe her, and they just start calling her Ruby. They quit calling her Rachel immediately, which is what they've known her by for I don't know how long. But they start calling her Ruby. And then they find out one of the motorcycles is gone. Someone stole it. It's Pluto. He's riding off on this thing wearing a football helmet. It looked ridiculous. Roy and Harry suit up to go after him. Harry gets caught by this trap, this rope, across two rocks in the cliffs. And he's riding his motorcycle and it knocks him off. And I'm just wondering, how in the hell did Pluto set this up so fast? I mean, why is this here? It would really only be effective for someone on a motorcycle. And it's not like he knew they had motorcycles. I mean, he was spying on them, yeah, but he just saw the bus. He didn't know they had motorcycles. And I don't think he knows what motocross is, so it's not like he read what was on the bus and said, oh my god, motorcycles, I'm going to set some traps for this. So it's just, and it was a new trap. That didn't really make sense to me. I mean, he's got a trap specifically designed to take someone off of a motorcycle for no reason at all. But Harry gets knocked off, and Roy's chasing after Pluto. Pluto wrecks, and Roy kicks his ass, grabs his knife, takes him as a prisoner. And Harry gets separated from him, so he's looking for Roy, and he comes across a booby trap. But after the rope trap, he's suspicious, so he doesn't fall for it, so someone just pushes a rock on top of him, crushes him, kills him. And Pluto tells Roy that he's not the only crazy out here, and the one he needs to watch out for is the Reaper. So that's the big villain for this movie. And Roy has him as his prisoner, and he sees Harry's body. And another cannibal, the Reaper, runs out. He's got a motorcycle. He rides off on Harry's bike, grabs Pluto, and Roy jumps on his bike to chase after him and ends up getting caught in a trap and knocked out. So the others are waiting for him to come back. It's night now. They find a generator, so they have a little bit of light at camp. And Rachel and Hawk decide to go look for Roy and Harry. Sue and Foster decide to go back to the bus so they can have sex. They tie Beast up outside. And Cass is waiting to hear back from Roy and Harry. And apparently, because she's blind, she has superpowers. I mean, she is like Daredevil in this movie, and they really play this up. That she can hear everything. She's got this sense of smell. And I know that when you lose one sense, the others increase. But this was ridiculous how much they played up in this movie. Like, seriously, she's like Daredevil. So Hawk and Ruby find Roy, or they find his bike, and they try to ride it, but Ruby falls off. And Hawk comes back to get her and gets harpooned. And then someone says, Ruby, gonna rip you up good. And then she just takes off running. So Jane and Cass find a shower. And Cass leaves so that Jane can take the first shower, and Foster shows up. He's watching Jane in the shower, and Sue shows up and gets pissed off at him. She takes off into the desert. So Foster chases after her in the bus, wasting what little bit of gas they have left. And of course the thing runs out of gas in the desert. And he gets out to look for her, and Ruby shows up. She tells him that Hawk is dead, and that they have to be careful to go get the others and tell them to prepare to leave. So Foster heads back to the bus, and he sees a hatchet on the ground, and Beast takes off running, and then someone pulls him underneath the bus. Like, you would think Beast would have known there was someone under the bus, but whatever. So he pulls Foster underneath the bus. That's the last we see of him. So Cass finds a secret tunnel disguised as a refrigerator, and Jane finds Foster's body in a closet with the hatchet in his head. The Reaper pops out and grabs her. This was a terrible death scene here. All he does is grab her, and then they have these terrible sound effects that are supposed to be her bones popping, but it was really, really bad. And then he attacks Sue and cuts her throat with a machete. Pluto attacks Ruby, and he tells her the Reaper is Papa Jupe's big brother, which doesn't really fit into the storyline. I mean, in the first movie, we find out from the old man that Jupiter is his son, who he bashed in the face with a tire iron and left him out in the desert to die. So how in the hell is the Reaper his brother? It doesn't really fit. But he says that the Reaper saved him, and now they run the desert together. So really the only crazies in this movie are Pluto and the Reaper. And Ruby tells him that if he kills her, Beast will get really pissed. And Beast shows up and scares Pluto off. And while he's chasing Pluto, the Reaper shows up, and he catches Ruby in a trap and knocks her out. Actually, now that I think about it, he kills her. She falls and hits her head in a rock, so I assume he just knocked her out, but we never see her again. So this actually kills Ruby. Pretty lame. Beast wakes up Roy, who's just been lying there this whole time, and Pluto shows up and Beast pushes him off the cliff. Cass knows something is wrong, and she's wandering around forever. I mean, seriously, she wanders around this mining area for like 5 minutes. And then the Reaper jumps through a window in the ceiling. His foot gets stuck. And she escapes into the tunnel behind the refrigerator. She feels the faces of all these bodies and realizes all her friends are dead. And she waits for the Reaper. And when he shows up, she bashes him in the face with this bottle of alcohol or something. So now he's blind too. And she climbs this rope to try and escape the mine shaft. And Roy shows up to pull her out. And then he cuts the rope so the Reaper's stuck down there. And then they decide to build this really elaborate trap while the Reaper is stuck trying to get out of the mine shaft. So they're trying to build this whole trap. And they have a flare. They have the super formula. They build like this ring of fire with it. All this stuff. And then the Reaper finally shows up and says, "Reaper don't get fooled like Papa Jupe. Oh no." And then Roy says, "The Reaper sucks." That was the best part of this entire movie. Definitely my favorite part right there. But they set off the trap. They surround the Reaper with fire. Cass takes off running. And then the flames wrap around the Reaper and the bus and Roy. And Roy tells Cass to do it. And she pushes this rock with a rope tied to it into the mine shaft. And Roy holds on to the other end of the rope. And it drags him through the Reaper's legs, through the flames. So he escapes, and Reaper is trapped by himself in this wall of fire. Why the Reaper didn't just run through the flames is beyond me. I don't understand that. This is something not just in The Hills Have Eyes Part 2, but in a lot of movies when the villain gets trapped in flames. Why not just run through it really quick? I mean, Roy just did it. You saw that. So why not just run? I mean, the flames just now showed up, so it's not like they've been sitting there and it's really hot or something, or they're really high. He could easily run and just jump over this. But I hate it when they do that. If it was me, I would definitely just charge through the fire. I mean, who wouldn't? Are you seriously going to sit there and let yourself get burned alive? So the Reaper heads to the bus, and there's the super formula, so the bus explodes and catches on fire. And the Reaper charges after him. He's on fire, and he falls into the mine shaft. He's dead. And the last thing we see is Roy, Cass, and Beast walking through the desert. And that was the end of the movie. I mean, Bobby's going to love hearing about their experience in the desert. He's going to be really afraid now. But yeah, that was it. That was The Hills Have Eyes Part 2. So I didn't really think it was a bad movie. Some stuff was pretty goofy, like Cass having daredevil powers and being able to sense things really far away. And then, of course, the huge trap they set up with the Reaper. And the Reaper, who's this big cannibal guy, this big beast of a man who lives in the mountains. And I mean, I don't know, eats rattlesnakes to survive probably. And he's this big tough guy, yet a little bit of fire like traps him like he's Frankenstein or something. I don't know. It was just really bad. I didn't care for that. But the rest of the movie I didn't think was too terrible. Not enough to be disowned. I mean, it's a decent horror movie. There's definitely worse horror movies out there than this. So I would definitely say that if you enjoyed the first movie, this one's worth watching. Because it does have some of the characters from the first movie. It does kind of tell you what's going on with them. And they even mention the baby and how she's growing up. Nothing really about Doug, though. But yeah, I mean, they kind of followed up with what happened in the first movie. So it's definitely a good sequel, I thought. But the next movie in this series is The Hills Have Eyes Part 3, which has nothing to do with the first two movies. So I'm curious to see what they did with that one. But anyways, that's my review of The Hills Have Eyes Part 2. Hope you guys liked the video. Leave your thoughts on this movie in the comments, and thanks for watching. Bye.